That's okay. That's absolutely
Maybe, yeah.
Fantastic.
Possibly, yeah. Okay.
Great. Yeah. Okay, super, fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, I think this is really interesting. Just a really quick word also about who I am. So a bit of an intro, and also the link with John here. So John referred to me before. So as was mentioned, I'm the founder and chair of Tech Nordic Advocates. So we are Northern Europe's biggest and the only pan-Nordic tech startup ecosystem with Northern Europe's biggest kind of fintech vertical as well. So we have about 740 members across the Nordic and Baltic countries with a hub in every Nordic and Baltic capital. And we're working to support Nordic and Baltic startup, scale-up, and tech sector growth, okay, across different verticals, one of which is fintech and blockchain and health tech and creative tech and lots of different verticals through a range of different activities. Some of them are events and some of them are working groups and collaboration platforms, and generally what we are trying to do, and I think you made that point really well, Johan, before, is let's create an infrastructure, let's create an ecosystem to join the dots so we can make some of this stuff happen. That's what we do, okay? And so we actually originate in London from Tech London Advocates, so our older brother or sister is kind of the engine behind London's tech sector. 7,000 people that have come together over the last 6 years to kind of make stuff happen in the tech space in London, okay? And then we are the first non-UK arm of Tech London Advocates, and we now have brothers and sisters around the world. And in China, our brother or sister is Tech Shanghai Advocates, which John is the founder of, as well as being the founder and CEO of Centi Group. So that's the connection. So we have brothers and sisters, we have Tech Singapore, we have Tech Bay Advocates, we have Tech Shanghai, we have Tech Everything Advocates. And so our mission here in the Nordics and Baltics is to make stuff happen here within our region, but also to connect all of our members and you guys and ourselves as a whole with other global tech and startup hubs, so that we can truly help Nordic, Baltic startup scale-ups and tech companies grow and scale internationally. And so that's why I suggested we have John here as well to really kind of open your eyes to what are the opportunities in another big hub, and it doesn't come much bigger than China. Okay, so that's the link. We are outside. You can talk to us. Anna's is here as well from our board, and you can, if you want to know more, you can see us outside. That's enough. So without further ado, what I wanted to do is quickly go through the panel. I think we've had some contributions from some of you already, which is brilliant. So if we just kind of do a quick round of kind of intro, who you are, and just make a quick statement, just give us a quick punchline on what's your take on blockchain in banking, finance, opportunities, threats, and the whole regulatory thing. You already touched upon some of that, but just if you could just go around the panel, please. You want to kick off?
Okay, my name is Lasse Meholm. I was here an hour ago from D&D Bank. But I'm very glad to be here by another cause as well, because I'm a multi-entrepreneur. I started a few companies, and one of them was Tasset. We was competing head-to-head to SimCorp in Denmark, and I sold the company, and then I started another company, and it was quite successful, and I sold it one more time. And then I've been working with bank for the last 5 years, first in Nordea and then in DNB. So being here with fintech as a headline is quite nice, and what you do is perfect. Making this hub is much easier for a startup to grow and expand. When it comes to blockchain, what we do in DNB is we do a number of projects, and we are not focused on cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies is a no word for us, even though I talked a lot about the stablecoin and so on earlier on. But if you ask people in the board, they say no stablecoin. But when it comes to blockchain, we really think it will disrupt the market, and we really want to understand what happened when it comes to Internet of Things, when it comes to the removal of counterparty risk. We have hundreds of people within the bank, and we spend billions a year in Norwegian kroner maintaining old legacy IT system. So if you can help that process of renew the whole thing using blockchain, it will be substantial and very important for us. So blockchain is definitely a technology that we will focus on.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think I just finished my presentation.
Yeah.
So we are kind of like a Chinese angle, but now we change what we say. So we're always talking about, because of the thing between USA and China, we try to telling people we're not helping Chinese investor looking for the best technology. We try to helping the European startup company or technology company. If they are willing to go to China, we just provide a service, helping them to raise money or something like that, and alongside to invest into. And I think the blockchain stuff, obviously, I think maybe after another 5 years or 10 years, everybody just thinking blockchain is just as normal as the internet. So it's just like because for now, no one understand. Maybe a few people do understand what is real blockchain stuff, but to be honest, not too much people know what is the true meaning of blockchain. And I was thinking this is something. It's just like internet, right? Like 10, 15 years ago, you don't go to internet, and you think this is something scary me, and you don't use it, and then you just don't use it, and after 5, 10 years, you just feeling you just like you just nobody without the internet. I think blockchain is something, even you don't want to use it, even you don't even think about doing a business relevant into this, but you have to pay attention into this. At least you have to understand what is. And I think you're having a great opportunity by doing a truly technology focus on the the basic of blockchain. Yeah.
Brilliant. David?
Yeah, hi, I'm David Grundy. I'm Group Head of Blockchain DLT for Danske Bank. So we're very active in this space, have been since 2015, principally within the private blockchain space. So R3 Consortium is one of our principal moves. I actually chaired the R3 Operational Committee, which kind of leads me on to I think some of the challenges that we face. I think one of the big challenges, I think you pointed out, education. Education knowledge is a big issue. There's a big trend of sort of relying on buzzwords and the likes, but actually making it real poses a lot more challenges. So how do we actually get these things live? What are the challenges we need to face? I actually don't see that, and it isn't a technical challenge. It's how do we match up regulation, and how do we match up a number of other areas such as data and cross-border use of that data. So regulation, control, operations, how do we make it actually real? And I think the other thing that is really key in this technology, which people forget, is you can't do it alone. The network effect is so critical in this space. And that's where banks have struggled in the previous years. Everyone, you mentioned it in your speech, is that you'd obviously try the best to beat your competitor, right? You'd always be friendly, but you'd always be the competitive market. And that will always exist, but I think there's a fundamental collaboration that needs to happen at the network level in order to make this real. So, and that poses challenges as well, competition lawyers, because they don't understand what that actually means. It means, we're not talking about price, but we're talking about how do we connect entities, how do we connect people together so that we can actually leverage this technology. So that's some of the biggest challenges. We have active projects in this space. Some will be going live this year, and some have solved some unique problems. But I think that's the other thing that we need to look at as well, is that I don't try and push the technology for the technology's sake. I tell my business units, tell me the problems you're trying to solve, and I will tell you whether I think DLT or blockchain would have an appropriate place to play. And it may not necessarily be the whole part of the solution, right? We're living in this sort of machine world where different technologies will be connected to find solutions. But we have had problems in the past where, as soon as you mention the word, blockchain will solve that, or DLT will solve that. And I think that's the lack of education.
And I think Johan will agree with some of that. So
Yeah,
you might just expand a little bit on just you obviously heard.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Johan Lorenzen. I can have the title head of blockchain if I want to, which is appropriate. Yeah, I agree with almost everything that has been said. Handelsbanken, obviously, as I said before, focus a lot on customer sort of needs and wants, and just always trying to sort of satisfy our customer needs. And I feel like a large part of what have been missing from the blockchain space is just that. I mean, it has been a lot of, like you said, running around with the technology, attempting to find sort of a fit for it. But fundamentally, I think that's the wrong way of doing it. And the collaboration part, obviously, which I also said, is the kind of key to moving forward within this space.
Absolutely. So, not a solution in search of a problem is not what we want. So that's a really good way into the kind of the real question, which is one we've been asked to address, which is focusing in on banking in particular. So we're starting to touch upon some of these opportunities. What do you think is the real opportunity or opportunity area or areas over now perhaps and over the next few years? And I think we've had this, and it's really helpful, I think, that 10-year thing. We're still experimental, aren't we? So if you're focusing in on banking, what do you think are the real opportunities or opportunity areas, and why do you think that is? So I don't mind who goes first. And by the way, if I can just add that, I'd like this to be a little bit more of a discussion as opposed to kind of just speech and Q&A. So I think we're going to get the panel to address this first question, and then I'd just like to ask you, what are people thinking, any comments, any thoughts, not just kind of Q&A sort of way, but let's have a little bit of a debate about this, because I think it's really interesting. We all agree it's experimental, isn't it? So what are the opportunities in banking? Anyway.
I think this is kind of, in my opinion, is one of the problems, right? Is that people try and say, well, what do we have now? How can we replace it?
Right.
And what we're finding actually is there is obviously new opportunities that arise. And actually some of our projects are more into the customer experience point of view, not necessarily traditional financial products. So, for example, how can we orchestrate material and facts and documents in a much better way and distribute them in a trust-based way? Changing financial models and changing financial products is hard, right? It's not easy, right? It will happen, and it will happen over time, but regulation and everything needs to come along with that. So where we're seeing benefit right now is, there's a customer problem or there's a business problem, and how do we solve that? And that's really based on the trust model and orchestration of data and documents. And our classic one is the Finnish land registry. Big problem buying and selling houses, right? You have to physically meet your counterpart in a room with the lawyers, many occasions, long, lengthy process. You have to travel long distances to actually come together and prove you were there, and lawyers have to witness you were there. Yeah. The orchestration of that through smart contracts, and then bringing the regulator along in terms of digital certificates, a huge benefit to customers, right? So we look at it in problem solving rather than, hey, how do we change what we've currently got?
And you were quite clear about that as well, Johan, that it's not about, technology, it's actually about, solving business problems, and blockchain is an enabler. So if you think about it as a kind of business problem stroke opportunity area, what do you see as the biggest opportunities, and how can blockchain enable some solutions as opposed to being the solution itself?
Yeah. So I feel like the greatest sort of part of blockchain and the space that we have right now is the fact that, like I've said multiple times now, that banks are collaborating, because fundamentally there are a couple of things within banking that all banks have to do, and historically banks have done that themselves. But I feel like there's an opportunity here for, when we have blockchain being an enabler for collaboration, we could work together to kind of find the things that aren't a competitive advantage and focus on those as kind of areas where banks can improve with the help of blockchain to kind of build common infrastructure that isn't used for competition anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree with both of you, and I think the property sell and buy is a very good example. It's always when you have a long value chain, and that's one example. And trade finance or import and export is another one. Trade finance is just a small part of the value chain, because you have orders, and you have send, and you have insurance, and you have bank guarantees. There's a lot of things that we are not included in, for example, in the Marco Polo. So if you take the whole value chain and completely digitize it and completely robotize the whole process, there's a lot of savings, both for us and our customer. And the same with the stock market, for example, the equity sale and buy. You have brokers, and you have something that makes sure that the depository or the custodian, and you have bank, and you pay. So there's a lot of people involved, and company involved, and APIs and all system. All this kind of thing can digitize and robotize by using the blockchain. So the blockchain has a lot of potential, but it has to solve, as I said, a real problem and make it better for us, make more money for us, and make it better for a customer. So it has to generate a better world.
So John,
Can you just sort of add on that, because I feel like it's a really important statement, and I feel like the key kind of denominator in that is that blockchain is a part of that solution. Because obviously, I mean, if a human is inputting something into blockchain and that blockchain is immutable, then that's obviously a problem. But if we have blockchain as a part of it, sort of digitalizing an entire customer journey, then obviously that will help with some of the things. Because I mean, there's sort of the sensors that can input things without being tampered with, those kind of things, and those kind of sort of segments of technology that isn't blockchain, those are as important as blockchain.
So there's an interoperability thing. John, what do you think? So adding to what you were saying before, so there's some giants obviously doing some of this stuff in China, it's a huge market. What do you think the opportunities are, so if you're looking at stuff on the banking, in particular perhaps players from this part of the region coming in, what's it all about, where's it?
To be honest, I think the question you're just asking, we have to divide it into a lot of different, for example, opportunity as a blockchain for a bank is different opportunity for an investor or for a startup company or for different. I think, for example, just my own opinion, I think the opportunity for any financial sector like a banking, insurance company, all this kind of stuff, is they have to use blockchain. Because all your competitors, they will start doing this. You don't have a choice, right? All you need to do is you just, as you mentioned about, you just using the blockchain technology to making your own technology, your services more, efficiently, right? And for the investor, to be honest, we always think about what is the next trend of investing to blockchain area. But obviously, for Bitcoin's cryptocurrency, that's not working anymore. First of all, it's not legal in China, right? We don't want to do this. Secondly, too many people doing this. To be honest, any token fund, like 2 years ago, that was crazy. You just close your eyes and invest into the token fund. You just make money, right? I can guarantee you make money. But now, it's impossible. I don't know, right? And for a startup company, I think we are, I just suggest from the investor point of view, right? Just don't focus on the one. I mean, in this market, has thousands people have already done. Because the blockchain area, you can just doing anyway. You can doing any sector by using the blockchain. I will just mention about, in China, the regulation is quite fixed. And now, I just example, it's very simple. So it is basically how to prove you are yourself. That's very simple, but you cannot prove you are Jeanette. How can you prove you are Jeanette? Right? But to be honest, I can find your parents, find your friends, can find your children. If all of them, they're talking about you are Jeanette, then you are Jeanette. So this is we have a lot of area can using this kind of like technology. We are collaborating with, we are actually searching for the technology for a lot of big corporates. I'll just mention one of the companies, it's called the CIMC. You probably know heard about, but they occupy 90% of the bridge between the land to the airplane. So that company occupies 90% of the world market. It's a Chinese company, right? They try to using the blockchain to make sure, this is like actually, the plan, the people, it's just very confused. They're asking us to looking for some technology which make sure they can using this to prove in each different country, this world, their system was actually working over there. And they are the biggest shipping company in the world, in China as well. So they just using the technology to just make sure all day, I don't know how to say this in English,
The containers.
The containers, yeah, everywhere in the right place. So I think this is great opportunity for any startup company or technology to focus. I think because we're staying in London, I remember in 2000, I think the blockchain technology. I'm talking about the bottom one, right? That was found out like a long time ago. And the things like 2013 or something like that, people started looking for how to implement this into a real real life, right? And your second question is how to combine with this kind of technology with maybe the Asian market. I can just say right now the biggest market who is using the blockchain as a real world thing, real reality, right? Is actually in China. So in China, we will start using a lot of blockchain, as I mentioned about. So if you want to find an investor again or a market for your technology, you have to say, you don't have to be in China. You can set in your technology, you can set in your coding, you can set in the way how you're doing this, but you can just get involved into that market. That's a great opportunity over there.
Fantastic. So before we move on to the other questions, I want to take some views from the floor as well, from people in the room. So do any of you have perspectives on this? What are the opportunities you're having here?
We've been all talking about these challenges with having like competitors involved in one network, and that's also one of those main issues that I've been experiencing, both talking with practitioners, lawyers, IT people. Like, where do you see the governance models in this kind of space? Because we need, as you also mentioned, this is not about replacing existing procedures. It's about reinventing your own business. If you really want to benefit from blockchain, you need to reinvent basically everything or seek new opportunities. So where do you see the governance models within the financial sector? Because let's just say Maersk, they've been working on the IBM project, but they are having problems getting competitors into that network. Are you experiencing the same thing in the banking industry? Because I see that as one of the main challenges is the governance model.
It is a massive challenge. I mean, as soon as you go cross-border, you're dealing with multiple regulators.
Exactly.
Right? That has probably destroyed a number of very good blockchain DLT projects, right? The complexity of dealing with multiple regulators who, quite frankly, and not, it's not negative towards regulators in any way. I mean, they've got to deal with a lot of innovation technologies, right? There's a lot of understanding required in order to provide governance and guidance, right? And DLT is blockchain is no different. So when you suddenly go cross-border, projects are hard. Really, really hard, and no one's really found a solution to that. I think trade finance, we've got what I would call a strategic bet. You probably got the same, Marco Polo. We're all think there's an area where it can be improved, but it's the regulatory issue is the big one. What we found, and we've learned recently, is by doing a national level project, it's much, much easier. It's still hard, but doing a national project where you've got a regulator who understands the challenges and is willing to become more digital, that has sort of demonstrated to us that there is a future, but it's one step at a time. Right? And one thing I would say to that, I do think the Nordics is missing out massively on opportunities. I think as a community that we've got a history of collaborating, and I think we've really let this one slip in terms of the potential. And I think it's basically down to the fact that we were all originally competing to see who could get the press release out quick.
Exactly.
And now those sort of ambitions have gone, and it's kind of like we are. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking together. Spend a lot of time with SEB. Spend a lot of time in Nordea. Trying to get to a point of common understanding. We're all involved in the R3 network. We're all trying to. But we've all coming to a point where we think actually, the Nordics has a great opportunity to deliver products and services, and then there's potential to widen that to Europe and international. But let's focus on the, national and Nordic level first.
Yeah,
that makes it easier.
So this takes us really neatly into the next couple of questions anyway about what are the key challenges, including regulations. So it's interesting. So governance is an important one, right? And you also touched upon education before. So there's a lot of hype here. And a lot of talk about it. There's probably a lot of people that don't actually really understand what it's all about. And so regulation is one. We're going to touch upon that just a little bit, just 1 minute before we close up. What do you think are the biggest challenges? So is it regulation? Is it governance? Is it education? Is it collaboration, building an ecosystem? What is is there any one biggest challenges, or are there just several?
So I'll say one more thing and then I'll keep quiet. Right? I think it's if you take a bank and look at their new product service offering, right? There is a process for new products being delivered, right? And there's traditional questions that are asked as part of that delivery. Like data, take data. Where is it stored? Who distributes it? Who looks at it? Which country do they look at it from? Right? And then you map DLT to that, and you have to explain to people what DLT is and isn't and who has access. you can suddenly start seeing where the challenges are. Then you've got the legal side of it, the compliance, the risk side of it, right? So banks' processes don't align to new technologies like DLT, right? It's an education, learning process, and we've spent the best part of 7-8 months going through that process for our Finnish land registry project, right, to the point to get out the other side.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be going through a process to get a new competitive service out, right? So internally, externally, those are the type of challenges. It's understanding how we get through those processes. And lots of people externally don't understand that. We get lots of startups that come to us and say, oh, you're just banks and you hate this technology and you hate the open source and you hate public blockchains and you've all gone private and you're all evil. And the reality is we're a legally regulated entity. We can't go completely into the anarchic space. Lots of us would like to change models. Lots of us would like to change different things.
But there's only so much you can do.
Yeah,
Well,
we
what
just
else
keep
do you
chipping
think?
away.
Well, what are the biggest challenges here? What do you think?
Well, I agree. The regulation is challenging because this is more than anything else. This is a global market. So if the regulation is the same in every country, it makes it much easier for us or not only us but also the fintech company to spend money and invest in here. And when it comes to regulation, I'm a part of this European Union blockchain forum. So I was in a meeting with them in Paris in December. And actually we spent a lot of time discussing the DAO, distributed autonomous companies or organization. This is a company that has no management, no board, they don't belong to any country. Every decision is made by smart contract and consensus. And how can you regulate that kind of company? And the European Union representatives said, this is here now, and it's going to be much more of this in the future. So there's a lot of challenges here. And I agree when it comes to kind of thing that slow the process, is maturity. First of all, is the underlying maturity of blockchain, but also is the maturity of the management of the company or the bank. They don't really understand the potential there.
And I guess the innovation in this space is so fast that by the time you regulate, there will be new innovations. So you're constantly chasing a moving beast, aren't you, really? So I guess that's part of the problem. So I'm conscious that, I mean, this is quite a long conversation actually. We're going to have a huge, long chat about challenges and regulation and so on, but I'm conscious as well that we're up against time. So just before we close, and we're going to have some more debates for the rest of the day as well, so these same issues are going to come up, aren't they? So just before we close, ask does anybody, because I'm really keen to also hear, there's lots of experts and people with views and educated comments and so on here. Anybody wants to make a quick sort of comment before we close out? Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, I just want to ask, do you think being a financial sector is so heavily regulated, at least in Denmark, the financial sector generally is a front runner in technological development and taking initiatives. But do you think because it's such a heavily regulated sector that the front runners should be found somewhere else, outside the financial sector, and then once the technology and the creativity has been run in another sector, the banking sector can sort of catch up?
I mean, isn't that the case already? I mean, there's a number of sort of innovations that have definitely happened outside of financial space before it's come in. But I mean, it's sort of, if you look at the future, it's obviously hard to say because banks need to be regulated, and I mean that's just the way things are.
You wanted to say something?
Yes, you're mentioning regulation as an issue and as a problem. But what kind of regulation? What is? Can you give some examples of regulation? You mentioned the process. I'm guessing you're referring to the MPOW process.
So for me, it's if you took a public blockchain, right, and you ran, I think someone came on this point earlier on. In a legal perspective, where'd you go for issue resolution? Right? I mean, public versus private blockchains. This is one of the key questions, right? Is that if I run a smart contract on a financial product in the public chain and it goes wrong, who do I go to? This is the problem. So how do we regulate that, and then which courts do we go to in terms?
So it's lack of regulation.
It's a lack of understanding,
Okay.
right? Because if a new service comes online and we can't prove that it's operationally sound, right, and we can't prove that it's protecting the corporate entity, then we're to blame for that, right? You know, the press get hold of that, and suddenly we're the big evil empire again, and you know. So we have to be very clear. So we need regulators to come on board. When we're running a new service, we need regulators to come on board and say, yes, we're happy that service can be run in a competent way. Right?
And that, of course, means they have to understand.
They have
that,
to
right?
understand it.
And I think that's also, and we have to close up, so we won't start a new subject. But I think there's also the point that maybe we can pick up in one of the later debates about, you know, so if there is regulation, whatever we decide that should be, may that also conflict with other areas, for example, you know, GDPR, and, you know,
Yeah.
so there are crossovers, aren't there?
Yeah.
So if you start regulating in this space, you might be, you know, trespassing into other areas. It could actually be very unhelpful. But I don't think we have time to open that debate. I think we actually know is the answer.
GDPR.
So we're going to close this off, and I think, I mean, there's so much here, isn't there? I think it's a brilliant debate. So we're all around, come and chat with each other, and we're going to have some more discussions later on, aren't we? So can we just give our panel